Ladies and gentlemen, or as we say in England, where I'm from, order, order. Thank you. From the Parliament, you know. So my name is Ivor Ambrose, and I'm the Managing Director of ENAT, the European Network for Accessible Tourism. We're in the session now on accessible tourism business. We've had a few sessions on the business, and now we're talking to people who are really at the sharp end of the business, working either in the NGO sector, the non-profit sector, working as a private business tour operator. We've got a speaker from Italy, from Poland, and a gentleman who's just getting wired up for the microphone from Ireland. This session is really about listening and understanding how different perspectives come towards the tourism business, and in which we try to, of course, increase and sustain the profits of companies that are working in the tourism sector, but above all, to make the sector accessible, to make the whole tourism sector accessible. So in a way, we're all doing our small part. I suppose that ENAT, as one of those networking facilitators, is bringing people together to discuss how they do it, how they develop their practices, which we would call good practices, and some would call even best practice. So I think you're going to hear some of the best. We've chosen these from the abstracts and from the organizations that have been involved. For this conference is really the epitome of how accessible tourism should be carried out, how it should be promoted, how it should be distributed, and how it should be part of every customer's experience, that they have an equitable experience, whatever access needs they may have. So we will listen to each speaker and we will take questions after each speaker. And at the end, if there are more questions for discussion, I'll come back to the floor to encourage you to debate and discuss with the speakers. Our first speaker is Daniela Broglio, and she's from IsITT. It's the Italian Sustainable Tourism Organization, the tourism organization working on accessibility for many years, but she has formerly been the director. You can tell also a little bit about your background, Daniela.
Yes.
Her background as the director in the tourism Torino and the Torino province. So we will give the floor now to Daniela Broglio. Thank you very much for being here. You're welcome.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to present a project that reflects our shared commitment to inclusive travel experiences for all. As has been repeated several times in those days of the summit, accessibility is not a niche, it's a necessity. I'm honored to present the commitment of many years, and starting from the beginning, in 2007, the Turismabile project was launched, founded by the Piedmont region, and the Consulta per le persone in difficoltà, CPD. It promoted a cultural shift from the idea of a barrier-free hotel to the concept of a welcoming territory. And here, although is already been mentioned, it deserves to be remembered Paolo Siride Ferrero, who showed remarkable tenacity in fighting against architectural barriers, always guided by for all vision, including in the field of tourism. Over 15 years of commitment on multiple fronts. Training and awareness for operators, assessment of events and facilities accessibility, improvement plans for specific destinations, creation of inclusive tourist packages. Accessibility is not an extra, but the foundation of tourism of quality. The legacy of Turismabile is very important. Turismabile is a network of training and air operators, practical tools, concrete experiences across Piemonte. And these are the solid foundations on which ESITT was built. In 2009, birth IsITT, Istituto Italiano per il Turismo per Tutti, Tourism for All, Italian Institute for All. So, from the Turismabile experience, ESITT was created to extend the Piedmont model on a national scale, to ensure the right to travel and to spread the culture of accessibility throughout the tourism sector. And so who is ESITT? ESITT is a non-profit association that has been working for over 50 years in the field of tourism for all. We collaborate with public and private bodies, creating models that are replicable and adaptable to different Italian and European tourist contexts. ESITT is, the target of it is very large, and so we work with public and local authorities, tourism and cultural facilities, tour operators and travel agencies, trade associations, university and training institutes. Tourism for all means ensuring accessible experiences for everyone. So also regardless of age, conditions, or personal characteristics. We are inspired by universal design, which combines functionality, aesthetics, and inclusion. Once again, to reiterate, accessibility is not an option, but a measure of tourism quality. The core activities of ESITT are technical consultancy for facilities and destinations, research, publications, awareness events, enhancement projects with an accessibility focus, training and awareness for operators. We work across the entire tourism value chain, from site expansion to the promotion. Accessibility, we offer concrete things to work for tourism for all, accessibility mapping and assessments, action plans and accessibility chains, inclusive design for events and destination, promotional campaigns dedicated to tourism for all. We work together with local operators, building shared solutions. We listen to travelers with specific needs and translate them into quality standards, co-design, information transparency, and continuous improvement. In a project like this, broad participation and active collaboration among all stakeholders are the conditio sine qua non for building strong synergies and moving forward in a truly constructive way. And to get down to business, I present you a catalog with itineraries for all in Langhe, Monferrato, and Roero, a land, a Piedmont land, UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the itineraries across this land are accessible to people with disabilities, seniors over 65, families with children, travelers with food intolerance, for all. A broad and inclusive tourism offer charming hotels, B&B and farm stays, traditional taverns and restaurants, historic residence, and countryside villas, excuse me. Oh, the steps to create the catalog Langhe for all. As first one, specific training about tourism for all delivered to the tourism operators in Langhe Roero. Then surveys on the accessibility and usability for facilities and services. Selection of structures and services in order to meet specific needs and creation itineraries and promotion of the catalog. Now, a short video with some interview to our director and some traveler.
L'accoglienza turistico. Siamo qua nelle Langhe proprio perché col consorzio turistico Langhe Experience si è fatto un lavoro importante con tutti gli operatori della filiera turistica, operatori che oggi sanno rispondere alle varie esigenze del turista, che può essere con disabilità motoria, turista non vedente, turista sordo, ma anche intolleranze alimentari e allergie.
Io quando viaggio cerco qualcosa che sia adatto alle mie esigenze. Nel mio caso dei percorsi accessibili alle mie possibilità motorie.
Quando viaggio cerco una struttura e delle persone che già sanno cosa vuol dire ospitare una persona con disabilità, quindi non voglio sentirmi una persona diversa dalle altre.
Siamo una squadra al femminile con 30 anni di esperienza. Abbiamo selezionato e testato strutture ricettive, location per eventi e attività. Siamo la terra dei grandi vini, della nocciola più buona del mondo, del prezioso tartufo bianco d'Alba, eccellenze che ci fa piacere far conoscere e vivere con esperienze personalizzate, esclusive ed autentiche, secondo le esigenze e le necessità di ciascuno.
Allora, l'attività che facciamo, ovviamente c'è il cane, perché il cane ci aiuta nel cercare i tartufi. Ok, intanto Book ha iniziato a scavare perché lui avrà usato qualcosa. Giriamo un po' il manico così e proviamo a scavare in questo modo qua. Adesso stop, posiamo lo zappino, con la mano ci avviciniamo al tartufo, ok, che è questo qua, è un tartufo nero.
La cantina è qui dal 1880 e nel tempo abbiamo poi aggiunto una parte di ristorazione nel 1993, dove io faccio controllo di qualità, quindi potete stare tranquilli, la parte dell'alberghiera nel 2005 e adesso anche la parte di un centro benessere. Conosciamo benissimo anche il valore della differenza, quindi quando accogliamo le persone vogliamo accoglierle nel miglior modo possibile, proprio per farle sentire soprattutto in un contesto familiare, che credo che sia la cosa più importante.
Turismabile è mettere insieme tanti attori, tanti operatori diversi tra di loro, di una filiera turistica, di un itinerario, di un territorio. Si parla di turismo per tutti, ma io direi un turismo per ognuno.
The experience of Langhe for all become Piemonte for all, a catalog a catalog that to date it features 21 for-all packages designed to enhance the regional tourism, offer with a focus on accessibility and sustainability. Here there is a QR code to see the catalog. And IsITT at present now, we have become a national reference point for tourism for all. We collaborate with Italian and European networks, sharing technical expertise, operational tools, and good practice. Our commitment is to keep growing and spreading a new culture of hospitality. We envision a tourism landscape where inclusion drives innovation, accessibility is embedded in every experience, and where every traveler feels seen, welcomed, and valued. The intense and inspiring days of this summit have provided IsITT with valuable insights, meaningful connections, and renewed motivation. The exchange of experiences, ideas, and best practice will enrich our future work. We leave this summit encouraged, better equipped, and more determined than ever to build a more inclusive travel landscape starting from Piemonte and reaching far beyond. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Daniela. I was very interested to, of course, to know more about IsITT. We've been working alongside you for many years. And I would like to go back to how I introduced you as a former director in the tourism sector here for Torino and the province.
Yes.
So you've seen the growth of IsITT and CPD and how they've done their work. As a professional in the tourism sector, how would you, I mean, now you're working with them and for them, but how would you have evaluated them at that time? Did they look as though they were on the right path from the very beginning? Have they been doing everything right? Or how did it work with the tourism sector, the professionals, the businesses? How has it gone from start to where we are today? Yes.
I try in English, but
Please,
probably
okay, you can go to Italian.
it's
We'll
more
see.
emotional in Italian. Yes, changed in 20 years. The world of tourism changed completely, because it's completely different, the traveler, and we have many places and many offering that was not considered some years ago. The nature, the walk, and also the attention for all. The attention for all. Now we can buy some package in tourism, also persons that are not particularly problem, but what we want is to have an attention personal for me. And the experience also of this offer of for all in Piemonte is like this. We are organized and designed some offer, but it's always the final client that is in our attention. in the center. That is the future of tourism. Not
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, I think I would also add to that last 2 or 3 years, since COVID, I think we've
yes.
become much more aware
Yes.
of taking care of the customer. And if the customer doesn't feel safe and secure, they simply won't come. So this is something that was already in the blood of CPD, as you say, from 20 years ago. It's strengthened and strengthened this personalization and care of the individual customer and their needs. So I think we'll move on, and we could take some more questions at the very end.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to my good friend, I say Margaret.
Małgorzata, but you can call me Margaret because everyone calls me Margaret.
There we are. Tokarska, who's from Poland. And she's also a long-time travel agent and working, especially travel guide and agent for tourists with disabilities, doing outward tourism from Poland with Polish guests, but also in Poland. So, Margaret, I'll hand over to you. You've prepared the next presentation. Thank you.
So I'm very honored to be invited to this Third World Summit as a speaker. And I would like to thank you for giving me an opportunity to share some experience and ideas about managing tours and supporting tourists with mobility impairments. Slide number 2. And the photo was taken in Milano 2 weeks ago. Having always had a passion for traveling, I decided to establish the first travel agency for disabled people, particularly for people with motor problems. The motivation to run the business was born after visiting Australia. While I was there, I used the travel agency run by the disabled man. And at that stage, I thought that if he could do it, why shouldn't I try in Poland? The Accessible Poland Tours offers services, started to offer services in 2009. As Ivor said, my agency deals with incoming and outcoming services, which means that I prepare the itineraries for people visiting Poland, and the Polish people wanted to visit other countries. As you can see, or maybe you can't see, but I'm also disabled. That's why I think that I am aware of all requirements that surrounded travel for this target group. I'm also a licensed tour leader. I work on my own, no workers. I'm the one who work. And I also conduct the tours personally, which guarantees a steady implementation of accessibility in all offers. Slide number 3. Okay, 2 photos from ENAT. I hope that you don't mind. We have much positive feedback from all over the world that Tourists for All is being organized and is essential. Someone once said, we don't travel to escape life, but that life does not escape us. Disabled people do not want their lives to escape them. For people who don't have disability, traveling mainly have tourist values. For people with disabilities, traveling means much more. First of all, it is a form of rehabilitation and social therapy, thanks to which people forget about their disabilities. It is breaking all barriers and resistance to leaving home. It allows them not only to experience the adventure, but to get to know new people and get to know new places. Traveling is often a dream come true. This shows that not physical barriers are the difficulty, but our approach to life. As I have mentioned before, most of my clients are severely disabled people with mobility problems such as wheelchair users, slow walkers, or guests with intellectual disabilities. Tour groups which are brought together by travel officers small, averaging 10, 15 people, and include around 2 free wheelchairs. At the beginning, I used to take more than 3 wheelchairs, but it became more complicated, so I tried to take only up to 3 wheelchairs. On the occasion, I organize larger groups, 20 to 25 people. These tours are on request from NGOs organizations. They usually concern tours abroad because NGOs organizations in Poland organize the tours by themselves. They don't use my travel agency. My clients who join the tours are both individuals or family and friends groups. I also accept wheelchair users who may be traveling alone and manage well without the assistant. And on the spot, I hire a pusher for a fee. Tailor-made tours are also very popular. Not only do I prepare the itinerary, but I'm also trying to help them so they can contact me online, they can contact me by phone, and if in case of emergency, and for example, I act as a translator if they don't understand something. My clients have mostly shown a strong interest in engaging with culturally focused activities, in addition to strong support for city breaks for a period around 4 or 5 days. The next slide. Okay. Now, each tour is unique and requires an individual approach for the range of different clients' needs. It must be planned in a logical, client-focused manner, and I need to foresee a wide spectrum of issues that may provide difficulties. Therefore, I always have plan B for all major aspects of the tour in order to avoid crisis. But sometimes plan B doesn't work. 2019, I am in Rome. The tour was prepared and the tickets for the plane 6 months before. The day before, I received the information, the text, your flight is canceled because of general strike. And I have 5 wheelchairs, a priest, and some carers. You can just hop on to the next plane. But I managed to sort out. I contacted you, I contacted everyone, and Wizard was very generous because we went to Bari. They gave us 1 more night in a very luxury hotel, and we fly back to Poland. But since that, the groups are the groups start not from 10 people, but from 15 people. So, okay. It is also essential to provide appropriate level of standard accommodation. Since my clients normally are not affluent persons, I seek out budget-style accommodation. This presents another challenge, probably everybody knows why, to find a sufficient number of accessible rooms. Most hotels offer 1-2 rooms dedicated to disabled people with rolling shower. It happens that I decide to use the regular rooms with walk-in shower, not step in the shower, or sometimes even I split the group into 2 hotels. Hotels provide rooms for disabled people with double beds, matrimoniale, yes, 1 big bed. And I just don't know why they forget that disabled people very often travel with carers or strangers, and they don't want to sleep in 1 bed. So what is the solution? The bed should be twin beds, single beds, and if needed, they could be taken out or put it up together. Sometimes I sometimes I book standard accessible rooms, standard rooms. For example, when I was in Budapest in June, I needed triple room, and the hotel offered only double room. And the policy of the hotel was that they didn't agree to put another bed. So I used the regular triple room, and the wheelchair was narrow, and we managed. The comfort of my clients is the most important when planning the required mode of transport. Whenever possible, I choose aircraft to travel to reach the destination, followed by a hire of accessible vehicle. While arranging the accessible vehicle, I have to be very good at maths to remember whether the vehicle has can take 2 wheelchairs or 1 wheelchair. And my groups are very small in numbers, and I arrange accessible taxis. My clients love them because they feel like very important persons. Taking taxis much reduce expenses, but not every destination has accessible taxis. So what I do, I split the group into regular vehicle and accessible vehicle. To neighborhood countries like Germany, Lithuania, Hungary, I use trains to reach the destination. It is a big challenge when it comes to service at the train station. It's not as good at the airports, but it works. In visiting countries like in Italy, Spain, I also use public transport. For example, last year, when I was in Napoli and Pompeii, we use a Circumveziana train. Oh, it wasn't easy. It wasn't, it was good luck. And also I used Citabus from Amalfi to Sorrento. Of course, everything I have to arrange in advance, but it works. Of course, not only accommodation and transport are important, but also I have to take care of guides, record the location of adopted toilets, take care of hiring the wheelchair and other things, or some people need the hoist. And some people have a lot of money, some extra money. So for example, they want to go to Moulin-Rouge. And of course, the main door is not accessible. So we use the rational door. The next one, slide number, yes, okay. How do I check the accessibility? Really, the best way is to do it personally. I travel a lot, so I can do it personally, but sometimes it's not possible. I attempt to obtain as many details as possible before taking people to destination. I request the hotel, the photos of the bathroom, of the room, of the restaurant. Being disabled myself, I really understand the details which details need close attention. I also use social media, like YouTube, Facebook, some blogs, because it's a great help. How is it? What happened? Because they should be more in. Yeah. Okay. Main challenges. I have already mentioned that organizing trips is a big challenge, especially when it includes people in the wheelchairs. As I said, the big problems is the lack of accommodation with rooms with rolling shower. Adopted transport, it's more expensive than regular one. For example, from Fiumicino in Rome, normal vehicle for 8 people costs 90 euro, and accessible one 200 one way. So it's really a big difference. I know that everyone wants to earn, but it should be really a kind of distance, really. It can't cost 100 more. Travelers with disabilities face the constant challenge of finding information. Information on websites, catalogs, guidebooks. The problem is that the information is not updated very often, or it's not reliable. You can't say that the hotel is accessible. You just have to explain what kind of accessibility is it, whether it's, and it should be the information if the hotel has 2 rooms or 3 rooms, they should place the photo of the bathroom. And so, because then I can decide by myself whether it suits me or not. Sometimes I think that tourist sector is a bit afraid of disabled people, disabled tourists. Since January, I have been trying to find a Polish guide in Malta. I'm going there in 10 days. And it was the beginning of January, and each guide told me that it's fully booked for all year. It's not possible. I'm going to take the English-speaking guide and then translate. I would like to use other travel agencies when I'm traveling abroad, but it means high costs for my clients. Why? Because as a tour operator, I have some provision, and another tour operator who I'm going to use also puts some provision. So the cost of the tour is very expensive. So stop complaining. In spite of all the obstacles mentioned, I managed to organize several tours within Europe. You can see some photos. The first photo was taken, oh, sorry, I know, I have to use the, how does it work? Okay, so the first photo on the left, it was taken on the train to Budapest. The middle photo, probably you can recognize, it's Madrid. And the last one on my right, it's Budapest, Parliament. The first one, Liverpool. I love Liverpool, it's very accessible and they have plenty of taxis which are not expensive and you don't have to book them in advance. This one probably Italian people can recognize. It's on the way to Pompeii from Sorrento and we're stuck because something happened and we didn't know what. But anyway, that station wasn't accessible, so we had to wait for 2 hours for the next train. Rome, Italy, last year, and Vienna. And on the right, the last one on the right, it's Sevilla. I'm going there on Monday, this coming Monday, and I also have a big problem because I can't book taxis, accessible taxis in advance because they refuse to accept the booking. The next one is, yeah, I have to hurry. So Kotor, so anyway, some photos, the next one. It's slight inaccessible tourism. Good practices in accessible tourism. More and more people with disabilities work and earn money. And when they decide to go on holiday, they also want to be well served. All providers in tourist industry should cooperate with each other and be aware that people with disabilities are the same clients like others. So when providing tourist services to them, let us imagine how we would like to be treated if we were them. People with severe disabilities have less choice in terms of destinations and products. Enterprises who understand the issue of accessibility will succeed in capturing a market that offers services accessible to people with disabilities. There is a great need for tourists for all, and we should do our best by cooperating with other institutions, constantly working towards providing better services and facilities. We also should encourage others from tourist sector to open their products to disabled people. And the last slide, I would like to thank you for your attention. I invite you to come to Poland one day because it's very beautiful and it's very accessible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Margaret. And I think you've given us basically a master class or a mistress class in accessible tourism organization from the tour operator's point of view, a one-woman organization which does incredible things, really. And thank you for the level of detail, because I think for anyone in the audience who's working in the field or thinking about working in this field, it's about the detail, but as you said at the very end, it's about the networking and being able to get trusted information.
Yeah.
And without that, you can't.
You just start from that, yes. If you don't have the information, you can't go anywhere.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we move to the next speaker. The third speaker is Luca Pozzato. Please introduce yourself and give us your presentation. Thank you.
Grazie. Buongiorno a tutte e tutti. Io parlerò in italiano. Qualcuno sarà contento, qualcuno sarà meno contento, ma quello che oggi vi voglio raccontare è un pochino complesso. Quindi vorrei che arrivasse a tutti voi nel modo migliore possibile, che sia compreso nella maniera migliore possibile, e per fare questo ho bisogno di parlare in italiano. Io sono Luca Pozzato, sono il direttore del GAL Montagne Biellesi e cominciamo col rispondere alla prima legittima domanda che voi tutti vi state facendo. Cosa sono i GAL? Purtroppo ancora oggi in poche persone sanno che cosa sono i GAL, ma i GAL sono degli strumenti veramente preziosi che oggi vorrei raccontarvi per poi raccontarvi in fondo di un nostro progetto legato al turismo accessibile. GAL è un acronimo di Gruppo di Azione Locale. I GAL sono organismi costituiti da partenariati pubblico-privati e operano per promuovere lo sviluppo delle aree rurali, cioè le aree cosiddette non urbane, le aree periferiche, le aree cosiddette interne, quindi quelle aree a ritardo di sviluppo che hanno più difficoltà a creare imprenditorialità e a mantenere i residenti in loco perché meno coperte da servizi, perché più difficili da raggiungere o perché più distanti dalle città banalmente. Ogni GAL, solo in Piemonte ce ne sono 14, in tutta Italia ce ne sono 300, in tutta Europa ce ne sono più di 2000. Ogni GAL rappresenta un territorio ben definito e ne interpreta le esigenze, le risorse e le potenzialità con l'obiettivo di trasformarle in opportunità concrete per le comunità. I GAL nascono da un programma dell'Unione Europea che si chiama LEADER, anche questo è un acronimo, si viaggia solo ad acronimi nel mondo della progettazione, è un acronimo francese, sostanzialmente vuol dire progettare dal basso, progettare il sviluppo sostenibile, partecipato e territoriale dal basso. Perché? Perché negli anni 90, con i primi programmi di finanziamento dei fondi strutturali, l'Unione Europea ha deciso di cambiare prospettiva e di invertire la rotta, non più calare politiche dall'alto, quindi dirigere e implementare strategie di sviluppo preimpostate da una politica centrale, ma demandare questo compito ai territori con un approccio cosiddetto bottom-up. I GAL nascono all'interno di questo approccio, perché i GAL periodicamente si trovano a redigere delle strategie di sviluppo locale concordate con i territori, quindi associazioni, imprese, consorzi, gruppi collettivi che rappresentano interessi territoriali si ritrovano insieme al GAL, insieme a noi, a progettare e a programmare quello che saranno le modalità di distribuzione delle risorse, perché poi di quello stiamo parlando, di contributi alle imprese e agli enti pubblici, degli anni a venire. In che modo? Individuando dei fabbisogni, individuando delle istanze, individuando delle necessità che verranno colmate da dei bandi o da delle attività specifiche che i GAL implementeranno. Quindi è grazie a questo approccio che le strategie di sviluppo locale possono diventare risposte reali ai bisogni della comunità, trasformando le risorse finanziarie di cui noi siamo dotati in progetti tangibili e duraturi. Con questo metodo è nato un progetto di cooperazione che ha coinvolto 3 GAL piemontesi. Il nostro GAL, quindi il GAL Montagne Biellesi, un altro GAL confinante che si chiama GAL Valli del Canavese, che peraltro è un GAL della provincia di Torino, e un altro GAL della provincia di Torino che si chiama GAL Valli di Lanzo, Ceronda e Casternone. Assieme ci siamo seduti ad un tavolo, ormai già da qualche anno, e abbiamo progettato una strategia, un progetto che abbiamo chiamato Messenté. Messenté è una parola in dialetto piemontese che vuol dire il mio sentiero. Abbiamo scelto questo nome per rappresentare un importante progetto perché richiama immediatamente l'immagine di un cammino personale, di un percorso fatto di salite e discese, proprio come i sentieri che attraversano le nostre montagne, è proprio come la vita di ciascuno di noi. Dentro questa parola c'è l'idea che ogni persona vive il viaggio in modo unico, con i suoi ritmi e le sue necessità, e c'è la convinzione che il turismo debba essere un'esperienza autentica, radicata nei territori, ma anche profondamente attenta alle persone, soprattutto a quelle che troppo spesso incontrano ostacoli nella fruizione turistica. Le origini di questo progetto risalgono al 2017, quando insieme agli altri 2 GAL abbiamo avviato l'esperienza di Montagne per Tutti, ed è il motivo per cui sono qua a raccontarvi questo progetto. Fu un momento di svolta. Per la prima volta 3 GAL unirono le forze per immaginare un turismo capace di includere e non di escludere. In quel percorso sono stati coinvolti operatori turistici, associazioni, istituzioni, consorzi, ma anche cittadini e comunità locali. Abbiamo gettato le basi per una visione nuova, più consapevole e condivisa del turismo di montagna. Da quell'esperienza è nato qualcosa che veramente in Regione Piemonte, ma anche in Italia, ha pochi precedenti, che è stato il codice etico del turismo accessibile in montagna, redatto con il supporto della Consulta per le persone in difficoltà e di IsITT, dell'Istituto Superiore del Turismo per Tutti. Un documento che raccoglie 10 principi fondamentali che vanno dall'accoglienza alla tutela del patrimonio, dall'attenzione alla comunicazione inclusiva e alla formazione degli operatori. Non si tratta di un regolamento freddo, rigido, ma di una bussola, una guida per chi intende fare dell'accessibilità un valore aggiunto, un'opportunità di crescita per sé e per la comunità e non solo un obbligo, non solo degli obblighi da rispettare. Con Messentè abbiamo deciso di compiere un passo ulteriore, non solo proseguire quell'esperienza, ma trasformarla in un brand condiviso, un marchio capace di dare identità e riconoscibilità a un approccio all'ospitalità che unisce qualità dei servizi, sensibilità verso le esigenze specifiche dei visitatori e attenzione all'impresa turistica. Perché, lo dico con convinzione, il turismo accessibile è una sfida non di domani, ma di oggi. Negli ultimi anni il concetto di turismo accessibile è cresciuto tantissimo e non riguarda più soltanto le persone con disabilità permanenti. Pensiamo alla popolazione europea, in particolar modo a quella piemontese. Io sono di Biella, in particolar modo quella biellese. La regione Piemonte è la regione col più alto tasso di anzianità in Europa e la provincia di Biella è la provincia col più alto tasso di anzianità in regione Piemonte. Quindi noi a Biella siamo la popolazione più anziana d'Europa. Immaginiamo quindi che la nostra popolazione, noi, stiamo tutti invecchiando e sempre più viaggiatori over 60 non vogliono rinunciare alle bellezze di un viaggio, un'escursione, a un concerto, una vacanza in montagna. Pensiamo alle famiglie con bambini piccoli che hanno bisogno di spazi attrezzati, di servizi flessibili, di soluzioni pratiche. Pensiamo a chi affronta una difficoltà temporanea o a chi convive con una malattia cronica. Persone diverse, con esigenze diverse, ma tutte accomunate da un unico desiderio, sentirsi accolte. Parliamo quindi di un mercato in continua crescita, che non è più una nicchia, ma è un fenomeno assolutamente di massa. Garantire l'accessibilità significa allungare le stagioni turistiche, fidelizzare i clienti, generare nuove opportunità economiche, ma significa anche, e questa è la cosa forse più importante, costruire territori più giusti, più equi e più accoglienti. Il nostro progetto, quindi, Messentè, si è posto 4 grandi obiettivi. Il primo è stato quello di rafforzare l'offerta turistica dei 3 territori inclusi, lavorando sulle strutture, sui servizi e sulle esperienze che possono davvero essere fruite da chiunque. Il secondo, creare delle nuove reti interterritoriali, dei network tra operatori turistici, perché solo condividendo le buone pratiche e collaborando si possono costruire dei pacchetti integrati e veramente competitivi. Il terzo obiettivo è stato quello di migliorare la comunicazione dell'accessibilità. I territori rurali, le aree rurali, ma molto spesso anche le città e le strutture urbane peccano di comunicazione, non sanno raccontarsi e non sanno descrivere quali sono gli ostacoli all'interno delle loro strutture, che magari sono insormontabili con delle opere edilizie, ma che se comunicati nella maniera giusta e preventiva possono non essere un ostacolo per i clienti e per i turisti. Il quarto obiettivo è stato quello di promuovere i territori attraverso eventi e campagne che mostrino le montagne piemontesi come luoghi davvero ospitali per tutti. Per raggiungere questi obiettivi abbiamo disegnato un percorso concreto. In primo luogo la formazione e la sensibilizzazione degli operatori. La formazione è necessaria, la formazione è importantissima, deve essere costante e deve essere in continuo aggiornamento. È una cosa che abbiamo provato sulla nostra pelle. Con moduli esperienziali che permettono di mettersi nei panni dei turisti con esigenze particolari. Non c'è formazione più efficace di quella che passa attraverso l'esperienza diretta. Poi la mappatura dei servizi accessibili. Raccoglieremo e abbiamo raccolto e abbiamo condiviso informazioni su strutture, su attrezzature e attività, così da creare una banca dati comune, utile a turisti e operatori. Abbiamo realizzato poi anche eventi inclusivi in ciascuno dei 3 territori. Nelle valli di Lanzo abbiamo coprogettato una rassegna che si chiama Montagne per Tutti. All'interno delle valli del Canavese abbiamo coprogettato un festival che si chiama Polide del Biellese ve lo racconto fra poco. Tutti eventi pensati e progettati per accogliere... Perfetto, mi scusi. Eventi pensati e progettati per accogliere davvero tutti. Devo parlare più lentamente perché parlo veloce. Abbiamo investito anche sulla nostra comunicazione. Abbiamo sviluppato un sito www.mesente.it e abbiamo utilizzato piattaforme di promozione social innovative. Vorrei sottolineare un aspetto. Mesente non è solo un progetto tecnico, è molto di più. È un patto tra territori che credono nell'inclusione come valore strategico. È un percorso che mira a costruire una cultura condivisa dell'accoglienza, capace di coinvolgere operatori turistici, amministratori locali, associazioni di categoria, scuole, famiglie e cittadini. Perché turismo accessibile non significa soltanto eliminare le barriere architettoniche, significa cambiare sguardo, significa cambiare prospettiva, immaginare un territorio come uno spazio aperto e accogliente per tutti, dove i servizi sono pensati con attenzione, dove le informazioni sono chiare e affidabili, dove le comunità stesse si riconoscono nei valori dell'inclusione. Per tutte queste ragioni abbiamo organizzato a Biella, ed è l'evento di cui parlavo prima, la prima borsa internazionale del turismo accessibile, la BITA, BITA. È stato un appuntamento di grande respiro, con 2 giornate dense di incontri, di talk, di sessioni formative e momenti di confronto. La prima giornata, ospitata presso l'Università di Biella, ha visto la partecipazione di esperti, operatori e associazioni che hanno condiviso esperienze, buone pratiche e riflessioni sul futuro del turismo accessibile. Abbiamo parlato di viaggi, di esperienze inclusive per persone con disabilità motorie, cognitive o sensoriali. Abbiamo parlato delle certificazioni per garantire qualità e affidabilità. La seconda giornata è stata invece dedicata ad un workshop business to business, dove buyer internazionali provenienti da diversi paesi del mondo e seller locali piemontesi hanno potuto progettare insieme viaggi accessibili e aprire nuove opportunità di sviluppo e commercializzazione di pacchetti turistici for all. Non meno importanti sono stati gli educational tour, realizzati grazie alla collaborazione di Visit Piemonte, con le ATL piemontesi e con i consorzi turistici locali. Agli educational hanno partecipato i buyers internazionali che hanno scoperto i siti turistici e i servizi turistici piemontesi declinati in chiave accessibile. I percorsi sono stati divisi tra percorsi gastronomici, culturali e outdoor. Tutti e 3 i percorsi sono stati fruiti dai buyer internazionali che alla fine si sono poi ritrovati a Biella per partecipare al convegno e al workshop B2B in cui hanno potuto incontrare i seller. La BITA quindi ha rappresentato per noi non solo un evento, ma la prova concreta che il turismo accessibile può essere un driver di sviluppo, di innovazione e di coesione sociale. E visto il grande successo ricevuto, abbiamo deciso di rendere l'evento un appuntamento fisso annuale. La seconda edizione sarà organizzata nell'aprile 2026 a Biella, nella fattispecie nelle giornate del 17 e 18 aprile, e a breve inizieranno le fasi operative. Invito quindi chiunque fosse interessato a partecipare alla BITA 2026 di contattarci per ricevere maggiori informazioni. I nostri contatti sono reperibili sul nostro sito www.montagnebiellesi.it. Con Mesentè, in sintesi, le montagne piemontesi si candidano a diventare un modello di turismo inclusivo, applicabile all'intero Piemonte, un cammino che unisce tradizione locale, innovazione sociale, natura e cultura, sviluppo economico e responsabilità etica. Quindi quello che oggi vi ho presentato non è solo il mio sentiero, come vorrebbe dire il titolo del progetto, Messa in Te, ma è un sentiero comune, è la strada che vogliamo percorrere assieme passo dopo passo, anche in futuro, affinché davvero nessuno resti indietro. Grazie per l'attenzione.
So I have to congratulate you as well on a masterclass.
Thank you.
I think this is a very interesting and obviously a very high level project. It's more than a project. It seems to be a way of life. Yes. The interesting thing for me is, again, you come back to the networking and the importance of getting down to the details. And just referring to what we heard earlier about artificial intelligence and ensuring that you have good data, whoever it's going to, if it's the end customer or if it's to an AI agent. The point for me here is that this is going to be very reliable data because you have people involved face to face, directly on the ground, and you have made a systematic approach so that you have ensured that that data is checked, it is up to date, it's verified, and also I want to add great words of praise to you for getting into the marketing and the promotion of the region of the Biellesi Montagne, because this is the most important thing. A lot of people do a lot of work and they don't manage to reach out and send their message and get their message out to the world. So you are reaching out B2B, business to business, and B2S, B2B, B2B, B2C, B to the customers. And I also heard the phrase, this conference, B2G, business to government. That came from Kuwait. We have a gentleman here from Kuwait who talks about talking to the government to make sure that the government is aware that you have all this innovation and all the power of the data with you. And it's something that you're very actively sharing. So that's a wonderful approach. I congratulate you again. So from the point of view of ENAT, we would love to work with you to involve you in our platform. We have a platform called Pantou, PANTOU.org, which gathers these different accessibility information schemes. So you have a whole scheme for the local area, and that's one that we would like to highlight as well. So anyone coming to Italy will say, oh, but in Piemonte, in Biellesi, we have this scheme. We have schemes here that enable you to be sure of what you're going to get when you travel here. So thank you, and we'll go quickly on to Eoin O'Hurley, who's from Ireland, a good friend and colleague. He runs a consultancy on all things accessible, a very high-level professional organization working on accessibility in developing solutions for public, private sector, and also heavily involved in training as well. So, Eoin, you will tell it much better than I do. Please tell us, what's your role here as a, let's say, private consultant? We've heard from NGOs, we've heard from a business leader here, Margaret. As a private consultant working in the field of accessibility, how do you work with the tourism sector? Thank you.
And if that's okay. Thanks very much, everyone, for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm just going to speak on, I suppose, embedding accessibility within organizations, within tourism organizations, and so on. So just a bit of a background about myself. As Ivor said, I'm an access consultant, and I do a lot of training in the area of accessibility. I first got involved in accessibility about 25 years ago when my mother had a stroke. So she was paralyzed on her left-hand side down. So as a result, she acquired a disability. And I suppose, you know, since then I've been actively involved in the whole area of accessibility. It changed my whole career and I suppose trajectory in life. I also have a son who has a hidden or non-apparent disability. So I have a first-hand experience of, you know, living with my son and his daily challenges that he faces around the whole area of accessibility. So as Ivor has mentioned, I run a consultancy company. It's called OHAC. I suppose what we do is we work with organizations to advise them, to support them, and to provide solutions on, I suppose, how you can integrate accessibility in everything your organization does. So what I'd like to do today is focus on how tourism providers can integrate accessibility in all aspects of what they do, I suppose, in order to fully, I suppose, achieve that universal design approach, but also to make their tourism services fully accessible to meet the needs of all their customers, including people with disabilities. So what I like to look at is three key areas. So at a high level, what organizations should be doing around creating a strategy and a framework to address accessibility. I'm going to give you 15 processes and procedures that tourism providers could implement in order to enhance their accessibility, and then look at some key areas, key themes. We talked about the 6 Ps in a presentation yesterday, which I'll go into, but also just, I suppose, look at kind of some of the emerging trends in relation to accessible tourism and areas that we need to address accessibility. So first of all, I suppose, to start with strategy and framework. So advising and supporting organizations, we've identified that there's 6 or 7 key areas that need to be addressed in order to fully integrate accessibility. So the first one, as the title says, a top-down approach to accessibility, is getting buy-in from the top. So it's really important that we look at, I suppose, the senior management commitment and the senior management understanding of what accessibility is all about in order for accessibility to be truly integrated. The whole area of good governance. So looking at, I suppose, having a policy around accessibility, having that commitment to addressing accessibility, but having clear set goals and responsibilities within the organization to address, I suppose, to integrate accessibility. So that's the form of an access policy or an action plan. We talk about annual reporting. So it's some organizations are great at, I suppose, implementing policies and strategies and committing to accessibility, but how are they following through? How are they, I suppose, reporting to management on what has been successful, what needs improvement, and what are areas that maybe haven't been so successful, and how they can change or adapt that process. We talked about the budget. People have been talking about having a budget towards accessibility. And it's not just a budget for making changes to the built environment. It could be a budget for accessible catalogs. It could be a budget for developing information in accessible formats. But it could be budgets in relation to rolling out training and awareness. So you need to have a budget, an annual budget for accessibility within the tourism providers themselves. Ongoing review, which I'll talk about in a few minutes when I talk about the process for accessibility. And I suppose embedding accessibility in all, I suppose, of all the tourism providers' plans. So, for example, a museum, a gallery, they may have a health and safety plan, they may have a procurement policy, they may have employment policies. We really need to get accessibility integrated or incorporated into those plans in order for access to be truly embedded within the organization. So if I go on then and look at some of the processes and procedures that organizations could be implementing or introducing within the tourism providers themselves. So again, it could be a museum, it could be a gallery, it could be a transport provider, it could be a hotel, a restaurant, and so on. So we're looking at everything from small to medium to large scale tourism providers. So we've talked about leadership commitment. So again, it's not just a commitment, it's making sure they have a good understanding of what accessibility is really about, because they can then inform that in all the decisions that they make within their own service, within their own organization and so on. It's really important that we have an access champion who I suppose is responsible for overseeing the implementation of accessibility. And it's also important to recognize that the access champion, they may know something about, they might be involved, their day job might be looking at IT, or it might be looking at built environment. So they need to have a wider representation within the organization. They need to have what's called an access team or an access working group that brings together all the people who have a responsibility for implementing accessibility. Number 3 is important. It's benchmarking and maybe maturity model assessments, but it's assessing the organization to see how accessible it really is. It's assessing where you are on your journey and how you can make improvements to accessibility. The benchmarking and maturity model will inform your access policy and your strategy, but it gives you an idea of where you are on the continuous improvement journey around accessibility. You might be at the very start, or you might be working, you might be implementing accessibility changes for 5 or 6 years, but it's good to benchmark against international good practice. So for example, we have ISO standards on accessible tourism that you could benchmark against. There's loads of national and international good practice guidelines on how to make tourism providers services accessible and so on. Number 4 is policies and standards. So I suppose it's looking at having the governance in place to ensure that you're addressing accessibility, which we've talked about in the previous supply. Number 5, I think, is really important. And even if you just take away this one message from today, it's if you are involved, if the organization is involved in public procurement, or they're going to be involved in, procuring suppliers to work with that organization. So it could be a graphic designer who's coming in to do all the brochures or the marketing material for the hotel. It could be the website designer who's coming in to make a new website for a public transport provider. Embed accessibility in all procurement exercises. Again, there are international guidelines around how to address accessibility in procurement, but by addressing accessibility in procurement, it means that for everything that the organization buys, will now address accessibility. So even if that's the only message you take from today, is writing accessibility into all tendering and procurement exercises. Number 6 is about providing accessible information. So I'll talk about this in a later slide, but I suppose accessible information comes in many forms. So for example, we're not at an event here today. That's an example of how we would address accessible information. We talked about itineraries, we talked about catalogs, we talk about branding, marketing, all examples of information, and we need to make that accessible. The importance of stakeholder engagement or involving people with disabilities in your service delivery. Luca, you talked about, working with your gals, but also, it's really important that we look at stakeholder engagement, and we learn from, I suppose, the accessibility requirements of people with disabilities. We found out what the real challenges are. And again, we learned yesterday from some of the presentations is that people with disabilities are not traveling to destinations because organizations are not aware of their access requirements. So one way of doing that, addressing that, would be through stakeholder engagement and consultation. Training and awareness, again, I'll talk about it in a coming slide, but throughout the 2 days, we've learned about education, training and awareness. It is key for organizations to keep up to date on the accessibility challenges, the changes in I suppose, we're learning every day about accessibility and some of the challenges faced by people with disabilities. This is a constantly evolving area, so we need to keep training and awareness on the agenda for all organizations. It's not good enough to roll out a training session at the start of the year and say, we've ticked the box, we've learned everything, we know everything about accessibility. It's constantly evolving. Number 9, a simple example, or a simple process to introduce: add accessibility on the agenda of your team meetings. So, service providers, they might be doing weekly meetings, they might be doing monthly meetings. It could be the marketing and communications meeting. It could be the hotel having their weekly town hall to get together to advise staff on what to do. But simply add accessibility onto the agenda. It gets everybody talking about accessibility. It becomes part of the new norm within the organization and so on. And we've covered number 10, integrate accessibility and universal design into all your policies, your customer service policies, your booking, your reservations, your transport policies, and so on. So number 11, adapt your services and products. Again, I'll talk a bit about products in one of the slides coming up in a minute. Ensure your safety and emergency, you're prepared to meet the needs of people with disabilities. So, again, a hotel might have an emergency egress plan. They may have a safety statement. they're going to, again, like the event that we're at here today, you can see the detail has gone into ensuring that the health and safety and the safe egress of all of us here has been considered, and it's been promoted, and people are aware of the, how to evacuate if required and so on. Monitor, evaluate, and continue to improve. So this is the continuous improvement journey that we talk about, to make sure that we're always trying to address and improve our accessibility. One thing that people don't often do, and that they should do, is promote the good work that they are doing around accessibility. We heard that again yesterday in some of the presentations. We may not have everything right, but it's really important that we promote the good work that we are doing in relation to accessibility. And it's also celebrating the success. So it's ensuring that, you're making your customers aware of the good practice initiatives that you're rolling out in relation to addressing accessibility. And again, for businesses, it's looking at by celebrating success, they're getting the message out that they are, I suppose, positive about, making sure that their services are fully accessible. So if I go on then and I suppose look at some of the key areas to integrate accessibility, I've just come up with 8 key areas to integrate accessibility. And I know Ross Calladine from Visit England had some. I'm just going to go to my notes for a second. He had he called it the 6 Ps, which I thought was really good. He had people, place, processes, promotion, and products and services, and personnel. I think there might be 2 Ps that he could add to that, which would be partnerships, and the other one might be procurement. So again, it's just looking at the 6 Ps, or maybe it's going to be called the 8 Ps from now on. But here's just some of the areas that I have. It's 8 areas: information and communication, transport and mobility, customer services, the built environment, which it was called place, products, awareness and training, partnerships and community, and also a key one is the employment of people with disabilities in the tourism organizations. So it's really important that we recognize that we want to employ people with disabilities in these organizations, and we're all aware of the challenges that people can face in relation to gaining access to meaningful employment. So in the next 3 slides, I've just kind of given some examples of the main headings that I had, but also some of the areas that you might be wanting to look at. So for example, under information and communication, we talk about written information. So it's making sure that your written information is available in accessible formats. And that's down to a simple thing as making sure your emails are accessible, and that you're tagging your images in relation to accessibility. Spoken and signed information. So very simply, from a customer arriving at a reception desk, and making sure that the person behind the desk is confident in communicating with the person's needs. The importance of pre-journey information or pre-visitor information, which we've all talked about. And Ivor has just talked about artificial intelligence and having accurate data, which could be a real concern for people with disabilities. It's fine for someone to say their organization is accessible, but is it really accessible in relation to meeting all the needs of someone with a disability? And one of the people I was talking to yesterday mentioned something as simple as just, being able to get a hoist underneath a bed in relation to transferring for a wheelchair user may not often be thought about by people when they're looking at their accurate information and so on. We've talked about transport and mobility. So again, the importance of, accessible transport as being key. Margaret, you have done, I don't need to go through this slide here, you've done it justice in relation to the challenges and complications that can happen in relation to lack of accessible taxis, but even if there's delays or cancellations, the impact that can have on, promoting or integrating accessibility. We've customer services. So again, looking at some emerging trends, even things like making sure your complaints and feedback, that you ask questions around accessibility, that you're looking at things like, we're looking at the area of neurodiversity, and that our people are aware of, I suppose, the needs of neurodivergent people, and maybe that you're rolling out training in those areas. In relation to the built environment, or place, as it's sometimes called, it's not just about the design of the building or the design of the hotel or the restaurant. It's about how the building is operated. So we've all heard about, you know, people using the accessible toilet as a storage room. We've heard about hearing induction loops that are not operational. So we need to make sure that we have checklists in place that can actually go around and test the equipment in our buildings, like our visual and audible fire alarms. We need to make sure that we design beyond hotels and transport facilities beyond regulations. We look at good practice, we look at international universal design standards, and we get our consultants or our architects or our design teams to embed universal design or accessibility at all stages of a project, not just at the early stages. And we can involve people with disabilities in the design of the facilities. So again, these are some of the emerging trends that we're seeing and some of the things that are being introduced into, I suppose, the design and operation of transport facilities. So other things like products, we heard Immaculata talk about the European Accessibility Act and the impact that's going to have on things like kiosks, things like help points at train stations or in railway stations. But again, it's going to have a massive impact, and we're seeing from our own clients, there is a real lack of awareness about what the European Accessibility Act means and what the impact on the design of products is in relation to accessibility. We talk about exhibitions and events, we talk about cultural activities, we talked about accessible itineraries already, training and awareness. So it's really important, but again, we could be talking about neurodiversity, we could be talking about employment of people with disabilities in tourism organizations, and just general disability awareness and communication skills. Partnerships and community engagement, I think that's really important when we talk about the lack of people, you know, I think some said yesterday only 48% of people with disabilities are traveling and using tourism services. Why aren't they using tourism services? If we look at partnership and engagement, we can learn why people aren't engaging. And we also have to recognize that we have Article 4 of the UN Convention, which talks about co-design and engagement and collaboration with people with disabilities. So we have obligations to do that. The last area, just to look at it before I conclude, is employment. And I just put a number of key areas that we need to look at. Recruitment, so making sure our recruitment processes are accessible. So, you know, if someone with a visual impairment is coming for an interview, has the interview panel thought about that person's needs and addressed them and so on. Disclosure, creating tourism providers that are positive to employing people with disabilities, but also allow people with disabilities who may have hidden disabilities to disclose that they have a disability. And then things like reasonable accommodation, providing alternative ways for people to, you know, longer flexi working breaks, or, you know, allowing people time to go to doctor's appointments, or introducing something like adjustable furniture in workplaces and so on. So just to conclude, I suppose it's really important that we lead, that organizations lead from the top, but not just lead from the top, understand why they are leading from the top. We need to advise tourism providers to integrate accessibility in everything they do. So it's not just the built environment, it's not just accessible information. Accessibility impacts on everything the organization does. I've said it already, but our ongoing education and awareness is key. Accessibility is always evolving, it's always changing. Every day I'm learning stuff around, you know, what's new in the area of accessibility. So it is really important that we have ongoing education and awareness. Engage regularly with the end users, so to identify what people's needs are and to make sure we're getting, you know, I suppose we're getting accurate information on the real challenges faced by people with disabilities. Ivor has already said the importance of gathering data. Information is key. If we don't have that information, we're not going to be able to make our services accessible. And I think I've said it there already, but finally recognize that accessibility impacts on everything you do, and everybody within the tourism providers organizations has a role to play. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have.
Well, again, Owen, thank you very much. So in front of you, you have 4 experts, undoubtedly. And I'd like anyone from the audience, please raise your hand if you have a comment or a question. And I'll come to you with a microphone, or someone will. Okay. Any questions? We're all blown away, I think. Okay. I don't see hands raised, but I'd just like to kind of sum up as well, because there's so many good learning points from this session. We came here to talk about accessible tourism business, and tourism is a business. It's not going to survive. We're not going to have tourism unless some people are making money out of it. And I think the important thing here is that accessibility can be a very lucrative business, if you like, but also that it only works when people have done the legwork, as we used to call it, doing the work on the ground to make sure that we have the accessibility information. And so what you've shown us, there are a lot of points here that I've noted down. I won't go through them all, but I mean, the networking is hugely important to drive up the number of accessible offers, the number of accessible businesses, and I would say accessible destinations. I've seen things changing also over the years, where I think the destinations are taking a stronger role now, and there's more being asked of destinations to organize and to work with the partners and the businesses to enable them to be more aware and to work as accessible organizations in the tourism sector across the tourism chain. So a lot of our focus at ENAT in the years to come, and as we talk about the future agenda for accessible tourism, I think we're going to try to bring the NTOs, the National Tourism Organizations, the regional tourist boards, the DMOs, the Destination Management Organizations, closer to their base, which is the businesses and the NGOs that are working and have been working tirelessly over many years to develop accessibility. Some used to say this is a cottage industry. Well, a cottage industry, yes, you may have been knitting, you may have been making lace, you may have been making handicrafts, but it's not a cottage industry anymore. I think we've shown here that the level of professionalism, the level of commitment, and the high quality of the work that's done makes the difference between trying to work on accessibility and really delivering accessibility for all. I'm sure all of you have taken things away from this important session. I would say there are a number of points I should just tell you about for where we go next, because on the stage here, we've got some documents, or it's a document, a draft manifesto for tourism for all. This document is on paper at the moment, and it's also, I think, in the posters area, you can read a manifesto that's been developed with UN Tourism, who are here with us, and the steering committee for this summit. We would like to prepare this and actually in the closing session, commit to this Torino Manifesto on Tourism for All, adopted at the Third World Summit on Accessible Tourism. There are many bullet points in here on what stakeholders can do, on what the public, also policymakers can do, the private sector, managers of cultural and natural resources, and developers of technological solutions can do to work towards well, what we call here is a call for action that we can commit from this conference to work together, to network, and to advance accessible tourism towards the next summit, where we need to check the progress been made. So I'd encourage you, you can take a couple of these papers from us here, but read the papers that are out there in the poster area and give comments to the staff of CPD who are here to reflect on this, and we will talk about this further in the closing session. I think that's all I really wanted to say about yes, another thing about the closing. All the presentations that have been made here in this room 500 are recorded on video. We will have the transcripts, I think, from the other rooms. So we will be presenting the information that you've heard here on the Destinations for All 2025.org website. And I think we will also try to multiply this information out through the partner networks, websites. So because in the end, this has been a great occasion. I just want to say personally, for me, a great occasion to meet people that we've known for some years, to meet a lot of new people at the summit, to meet face to face after all those tiresome years of the COVID period and in between, where finally we get together again to see how it's going with the old friends and to see the innovations, the new ideas that are coming from the sector, the startups, the new technologies, the new points of view that come with the next generation. And I was so happy that we had a lot of students here and public sector officials from Italy to be witnesses to this event as well and to learn from this event. That was so important as well, because we need to look to the, I should say as an older guy, we need to look to the next generation. We talked about the wave of seniors that are traveling, and I think the seniors are not going to be traveling so easily unless the youngsters help us out, you know. So I think it's very important to focus finally, just mentioned, on the training that all of you have been working on in different aspects. Even Margaret works with us in our European projects as a trainer. And we all need to work towards training, teaching, raising awareness about accessibility. So that's my short summary. I'd like to continue this discussion with all and any of you that have time between now and the end of the summit or beyond through our contact with our ENAT through our website. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you to our speakers. You've been very generous with your time, your knowledge, which is the vital thing. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.